you get enough people who say, this is unacceptable, we have to do something. Half the world is just like the Wild West. There are some policies there, but mainly they are around the issue of how do we carve up the golden goose, the ocean, rather than how do we protect the golden goose, the ocean. And that's my best cause for hope. People are now armed and have the capacity to get armed with knowledge, and will demand that the governments who represent them will do the right thing for humankind.
Yes.
Aloha, I'm Aulani Wilhelm, and I am the manager for NOAA for the Ohana Bukuakea Marine National Monument. So I spend each and every day protecting that golden goose, at least in 363,000 square kilometers of that bit of ocean. And well, first of all, I just want to say I have no issue with the gender. I feel it was very fun. And I really, and I really want to allow all of you for what you do, both in all of your endeavors to really raise these issues to every region and internationally. It's really, really important for us to have this information and to share it. And what I'm trying to find is how can we, from a manager framework, I'm hearing all of these negotiation difficulties. And so if we got what we wished for, and we were able to successfully negotiate, I'm wondering, what does that management look like for you folks? Is that, this is trying to translate what our experience is every day into what that would be if you times that by 10, and it was in the high seas. Is that just an enforcement regime? Is it about better science? Is it, what does management mean in these negotiations? And is that definition part of the illustration in the minds of the people sitting around this table? And the link that I'm trying to make is how can we as managers work with all of you who are working in the advocacy and the development of policy arena to kind of make those proposals real?
That's what I can see is still not as clearly defined as I would like it to, but it's building off of what you're doing already. That you are trying to bring people from various sectors together. You are trying to include cultural values. You're trying to include environmental values. You're trying to recover this sacred place of planet ocean, if you will. But it doesn't mean activities stop. It means that the environment is given a say, that governments, as Elizabeth was saying, I would see sort of a multiple tier approach, where at the global level, governments are coming together as they do as they should theoretically do under the UN Convention on the Law of the Sea, is conference of parties where they're discussing these key issues, and they are getting reports from the regional level, from the sectoral levels, on what are you doing to implement these requirements that we agree on a common basis. You would have something at the regional level that looked like the Antarctic Treaty System, where you have a body responsible for conserving living marine resources, and another body that may be looking at the other environmental activities going on. Both bodies come together to cooperate on environmental impact assessments to determine how a potential activity is going to impact on conservation of living marine resources or marine environmental quality. You would have the checks and balances at that regional level, so you're making sure that things are done with transparency. If somebody wants to conduct an activity, they do have an obligation to show that it will not cause significant adverse impacts, and they're able to manage their behavior in a way that prevents harm. I could go on, but I think that's, it's a system of checks and balances with responsibility and some accountability mechanism built in where we as citizens can be sure that the management is being done on behalf of all of us as well as future generations.
I don't think in lofty terms. beyond national jurisdiction, so that we have multi-sector protected areas, so that we do in the United States, so that we have basic environmental assessment requirements that we've had in place for more than 33 decades. It's not rocket science. It's not beyond. It's not sort of a huge new, break the wall kind of regime we're talking about trying to take what we've learned domestically within the U.S., within Japan, within Canada, within many countries' jurisdictions, and apply it beyond national jurisdiction to global economies.
Yeah, I agree with everything they said. The only thing I would add is I've heard from a number of individuals and countries, well, if you assume you negotiate this treaty and it's all fine, then in order to decide on which areas are protected, you're going to need 194 countries to agree. And I would say, well, at the national level, how many members of the House of Representatives and Senate in the U.S. have to agree? And at the national level in Canada, how many have to agree? The national level in Australia, what's the process? It's a political process. And it's a political process of back and forth. And maybe the area that's being protected is not as large as some would like, and not as small as some would like. It's a back and forth, it's a political process. But at the end of the day, at the national level, you pass a law. The reserve that you're managing, it was passed, back and forth, stakeholder input, etc. So if you ask what's the vision, my vision is 30 years from now, hopefully we're all here, looking back, there's a process, and we see that there are some areas that have been set aside as totally off limits, wilderness. There are areas that are multiple use protected. There are areas that are being used. Any fishing that's going on is sustainable, it's based on science. And there's some high-tech stuff we can't even imagine today that's making sure that there isn't illegal fishing. And while we're at it, governments aren't giving subsidies so that there's all the illegal fishing going on. But that's the idea. It would be a political process. But there are political processes on the national level, and what we're saying is it's beyond national jurisdiction. It's going to be messy. It's going to be a political process at the international level. But as has been said, there's no choice. It has to happen. Thank you.
And just one last point, and that is, why does this have to be legally binding? And I know from experience within our own government that, for example, the Department of Interior doesn't particularly like us to talk to all the different other agencies. Fish and Wildlife Service doesn't like to talk, but they have to because the law requires, and that's why we need a legal law. So, we're going to.
I think you're going to tell us to stop. Last shuttle is at 10 o'clock.
So I think with that, we'll break. Please enjoy some wine and the tea